Hello, we are live back with Center Radio. We are here with the COVID-19 edition here in Indiana County. And today we are especially excited to have one of our local representatives here, Senator Joe Pittman, with us to talk to us a little bit about what's going on and in this area with the COVID-19 virus at this time. Senator Pittman, are you there?
Yes, Sybil, I am. Thank
Hi,
you.
how are you?
Good. I'm doing well.
It's good to see you again. I think I met you, your wife I knew, but I think I met you at the NAACP meeting, the banquet that you attended in the fall. When I
Yeah.
first met you. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, my wife's much more popular than I am.
She's a fitness queen. I see her at the fitness center all the time. So
Yeah, she's the lady running down the street with the twins in the stroller.
yes, yep, that's her. That's how we met, actually. Just starting off, we've heard today about some guests, or from some of our guests, in particular about businesses and help that the small businesses can get, also homeowners. But there are a group of people that, we're not hearing a lot about in the news, and those are people that are renting their homes. Can you tell us anything or that you've heard of or programs to help people that are renting homes that may be out of a job or, about to be out of a job? It's the first of the month and they don't have any rent money. Do you know, can you comment about anything about that?
Well, of course, anybody that's a renter has a unique circumstance one way or another. And so not necessarily every program that is out there will fit. But the most overriding opportunity is, of course, unemployment compensation. And as Linda Mitchell pointed out, we've come into a whole new era whenever it comes to filing unemployment claims, the eligibility of it, the immediacy, and also the extended benefit. So I think first and foremost, anybody who's a tenant who has lost a job, or even in circumstances where their employment has been reduced, you can file for partial unemployment as well, if that may fit your circumstance. So that is the first avenue to explore. Secondly, the federal stimulus, and we're still learning a lot about the availability of resources coming out of that. I know, for example, LIHEAP was substantially funded, which is designed to help with heating assistance. The federal government has suspended loan repayments for higher education assistance. So that's a big element of it. Of course, we have the federal stimulus that is coming, and that should go to any taxpayer who paid taxes in either 2018 or 19 and has met the income thresholds, which for our area are fairly generous, $75,000 for an individual and $150,000 for a couple. So those are some of the more immediate opportunities available. I also know that the FDIC has given guidance to lending institutions that they can modify loan terms and not have those loan terms be viewed as risky loans, which then, of course, limits their ability to lend. That was one of the things that came out of the Dodd-Frank provisions all those years ago. And so there is new flexibility within financial institutions for those who have loans to talk about altering the terms and conditions based on these unique circumstances. One of the other things we're looking to do, and it's not a direct benefit to the tenant, but it would be to the landlord, which would hopefully give them some flexibility. We're trying to allow for some flexibility on municipal governments to extend the payment date of property tax bills, which are due primarily May 2nd. One of the things that I've heard, particularly from the downtown business community, that not only have they lost all of their income, but they also have a property tax bill coming up in a month. And so we're trying to give municipalities that flexibility. We're not requiring it because obviously that's a give on a municipality's part as well. But we want to make sure that at least that's an opportunity that's available depending on the municipality's circumstance. So those are some of the broad things that are available. I encourage anybody who has an issue to either reach out to my office by telephone, which is 724-357-0151, or visit my website, which is senatorpittman.com. And the resources are there. You can see there's a contact me form up in the upper right-hand corner. And if you get that to us, we'll work to get back to you as soon as possible and get you into the right place.
Wonderful. So can you tell us about protections for folks that fall behind on credit card debt or utilities that, can potentially lead them to horrible credit scores through no fault of their own? Are there any programs right now through banks or lending institutions that are talking about credit card debt, or the utility companies talking about people that aren't going to be able to meet their utility bills while the stimulus is taking effect, before they get that $1,200 or the unemployment benefits?
Right. Yeah. There's been a lot of conversation of, again, the loan modification opportunity that's been presented from the FDIC. If you modify your loan, it will not negatively affect your credit score. So you can look toward those deferred payments as something that you wouldn't have impact your credit score. There have been a lot of financial institutions that have voluntarily suspended any foreclosure proceedings. Functionally, those foreclosure proceedings are held up because our court system has been put on essentially lockdown for the month of April. And so there are those types of relief efforts. As I said, LIHEAP is out there, which is utility assistance, primarily on heating, but it can be used, in a number of ways. So there are those mechanisms out there that, everybody has been working through. And, we have to keep in mind that, this really became an issue on March 13th. And so we're only 2 weeks into this crisis, and there are a lot of issues that need to be unwound that none of us had ever anticipated when we woke up on March 12th.
Yeah. Switching gears now and talking about, you said March 12th. I know that the stay-at-home order was giving back at that time. Schools closed down all throughout the state. But now it looks like we're in a little bit of a different order, and there's some confusion on what that means. I know yesterday that the stay-at-home order was given by our Governor Wolf. What does that look like, and how does that differ from what we were already doing before?
And that's a great question. And you're right. These orders on what is life sustaining and what is not life sustaining, what does it mean to stay at home, what does the word order mean, have created a great deal of confusion. And that's been one of the greatest frustrations I know for legislators in my position, because we're trying to answer questions and give people advice on what the proper procedures are. But, the bottom line of this is, don't go anywhere you don't have to go. Don't congregate into large groups. You go out for what you essentially need. You go out to care for family members. You go out for emergency situations. You go out if you are a life-sustaining employer, or if you work for a life-sustaining employer. We're trying to deliver a very strong message to say, use common sense and good judgment, and try to protect yourself and those around you by really practicing isolation as much as possible. But the orders are also very clear that if you need to get to the grocery store, if you need to visit family, recreation is encouraged. You have to get out of your house, so to speak, but you just need to do it in a way that limits your exposure to others.
So public parks and things like that, are they still open?
Well, public parks to an extent are open. However, the facilities in large major are not. So if you go, for example, to Blue Spruce Park, you can walk around the park, but you don't necessarily have access to, I'm not even sure you have access to the restroom facilities, to be sure. I know the playground area is roped off So even our public facilities are restricted. State parks are very much hamstrung right now, and so that's a big challenge. To some of what Jessica had said in the previous segment, there aren't a lot of opportunities to get out of your house and to go to different places. I have to admit, with 4 kids at home, my first thought was, well, I'll get them down to the museum a day. Well, then it became abundantly clear, no, I won't. Well, I'll take them to the library. Well, you're not going to take them to the library. I mean, in taking them to the park is not even an option. So, we're really in a difficult time here in trying to restrict our movement, but also keep a level of sanity within our own confines. But the bottom line of all these orders is try to confine your movement and your interaction as much as possible. Be sensible about your hygiene, be sensible about who you're interacting with, and keep it to a minimum.
Thank you for that. I want to, like, on the flip side of that, there's those of us that are out in the community trying to restrict a lot of interaction with each other and self-isolate. But then there are the essential workers who do have to leave their home, as specifically the healthcare workers who are on the front line right now. I know my mother, my sister, and my niece. My sister's director of nursing, but my niece is on a COVID team at Mayo Clinic down in Florida. And some of the stories she's telling me are frightening. And I just like to know, are there workers here outside of even healthcare that are supplied with PPE, which is the protection gear?
Well, I can't speak for all the employers. I do know that I've been in close contact with both Indiana and Armstrong County health systems because those are the 2 I represent. I know they're adhering strictly to CDC guidelines for employees, but we've got to acknowledge the fact that anybody who's employed in the healthcare realm, whether it's in a nursing home, emergency medical response, or in a healthcare system in its own right, is exposing themselves to great risk. And we owe them all a debt of gratitude. And I know there's been a lot of talk about the idea of hazard pay for those workers. And I think that's absolutely something we need to put on the table as an opportunity. But I think if employees of an employer have concerns, any employer is bound by the typical guidelines and regulations of not only the Department of Health, but also OSHA and Labor and Industry. And I'm quite certain that there are avenues to submit concerns and complaints through the departments that oversee those workplaces. But I really think that now more than ever, the relationship between an employer and an employee needs to come together and understand that, we're all in this together. There's a reason why these businesses are deemed life-sustaining, because we all depend on them in some form or fashion. And employers and employees need to look out for each other because we're in this together, and we're in a situation that we haven't seen in 102 years.
So is there some type of avenue or a place that a worker can go if they feel like their working environment is not safe, but their employer has applied for a waiver and they're still mandated to go to work, but they're not feeling like it's safe?
Well, the waiver, the issue of the waiver, that's a whole nother topic. When we're talking about a life-sustaining versus non-life-sustaining business, that's within the realm of what that business provides to the community and whether or not it's an essential product or service. There has been a significant amount of gray area in this, and the governor's established a waiver process. My understanding is there's 24,000 waivers that are sitting at the Department of Community and Economic Development, and 2/3 of them have yet to be decided upon. So there are a lot of employers out there that believe they fit within the life-sustaining realm, but aren't sure because they're still waiting on the waiver. The other issue is that the governor just yesterday again changed the standards or the definitions of what he considers to be life-sustaining and non-life sustaining. So the bottom line is, I don't have a good answer for certainly every employee and every employer. Every situation is unique and different. You know, if an employee has a concern, they first and foremost need to talk to their employer. They need to talk to their immediate supervisor and express that. But as a governmental agency, all employers have rules and regulations for workplace safety that they must abide by. And I think at the end of the day, the CDC guidelines are out there for a reason, because we're trying to encourage everybody to abide by those guidelines, employer or employee. But it's really hard to define within each circumstance what is, you know, the proper avenue for an employer and an employee to operate. I would say that if somebody has a specific concern, they can certainly check into my office and we can try to give them the best path and avenue to register a complaint. But similar to what Jess said about the situation, many of those that she works with, you know, whether it's the unemployment comp system or the Department of Health or Department of Environmental Protection, you know, all of our employee groups are in some level of isolation as well. And when you take that restricted ability to do their job, compound with the crushing demand that is being placed on them, it's making it a very difficult situation for our own government to even operate in an effective way.
We want to just say thank you for all of your time, for giving us some clarity on some of the issues that are outstanding right now in this area, specifically to Indiana Armstrong counties. Is there anything that you would like to say just in general to the population and our listening audience?
More than anything, we will get through this. And it's easy for us to try to say you've got to remain calm and you've got to remain patient. I can tell you that the level of anxiety that I'm experiencing right now in our community is palpable, and it's not going to get any better. But we've got to come to a point of calmness. We've got to understand that everybody is in this together. We're trying to make things move as quickly as possible and as correctly as possible. You know, we've been through this for 3 weeks now. When normal returns is anybody's guess. Nobody knows. As Dr. Fauci said, the virus is on its own timeline. And so we've got to try to be as patient as possible. We have to recognize that this virus in some form or fashion is always going to be here. It's never going to quickly, completely go away. And we've got to recognize that as we fight that virus, there is a lot of collateral damage that's occurring that also needs to be managed. And that's what we're trying to help manage right now.
And thank you. We appreciate all the time that you're spending, you know, helping us and trying to manage this for us as our representative. We appreciate your family lending us, you know, your time, because I know you do have 4 young children, and so we appreciate that as well. In closing, I'd just like to ask, would you come back sometime to, you know, revisit some of these things as the transition occurs and as, you know, this, you know, sea of uncharted waters, you know, just kind of keeps, you know, moving along.
Look, Sybil, I'd be more than happy to come back and talk. As I said, I think the only way we get through this is if we communicate and we stick together. And I appreciate everything that your previous guests have said and done. We're all working hard to try to make this better. And don't worry, my kids were just fine with me getting out of the house for a little while at this point. So no problem there, but thank you.
All right. Thank you. And you take care.
You too. Thank you.
Tell your wife I said hi.
I will. I will.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hi, welcome back to Center Radio, Center Webcast now, COVID-19, Indiana County, episode 4, Webcast edition. Sybil, I heard some common themes there that I think make me feel pretty good about how Indiana is rolling in. Generally, that folks feel calm, that they recognize there is anxiety, and yet folks are working together here. What did you hear?
I'm hearing the same thing. I'm hearing a lot of bipartisan effort to try to get through this. I think we're working as a community. I think all engines are fired up to try to do the best they can. Some things just aren't clear. And I think, many of our guests have been very honest. This is a sea of uncharted waters. We've never done this before. We've never been in lockdown, never in my lifetime. And so I think I'm hearing on the most positive, the silver lining of this is that the community is working together more than ever to try to get everyone through this. So.
Yeah, I think that's about right. So our next show is coming up, and it's going to talk a lot about these ways of communities coming together. Sunday, I guess that's April 5th, we're planning on featuring a couple local heroes. One is one of the folks who have been making these masks. It's great to hear from IRMC that those masks will be used, despite not being the N95. Those homemade masks will be used, so I think our family will probably get in gear. And we'll hope to have some small businesses as well as the Chamber of Commerce, and hopefully sneak in Alice Paulhouse to talk a little bit more about some of the domestic violence issues that folks are likely facing now that we've been in this quarantine. We're all at home. So thanks, everybody. That concludes episode 4. Thank you much.
Thank you.